I told my son exactly what my husband did despite him begging me not to tell. My 14-year-old son Adam has this best friend Dean who's literally the only reason he still smiles some days. They met last year when we switched schools after my divorce, and Dean was the kid who sat with Adam at lunch when nobody else would. You know how brutal middle school can be for the quiet kids. Dean's dad Mike picks him up every day since he's a single dad too. We'd see each other in the pickup line and eventually started talking. Just normal parent stuff. How the kids were doing in math, upcoming school events, that kind of thing. My husband Jake started getting weird about it almost immediately. Jake would make these passive-aggressive comments whenever Mike's name came up. Like if I mentioned that Mike told me about some school fundraiser, Jake would roll his eyes and mutter something about how Mike sure knows a lot about what's going on. It was annoying, but I figured he'd get over it. Then Adam got really sick and needed surgery to remove his appendix. It was scary because they found complications and he had to stay in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. Dean visited every single day after school. Sometimes Mike would drive him over on weekends too since they live pretty far from the hospital. Jake would either completely ignore Mike when he showed up or make these weird territorial comments. Like when Mike brought Adam some comic books, Jake loudly announced that we already had plenty of books at home. When Mike offered to help with anything we needed, Jake said we were fine and had everything handled. It was embarrassing. Mike definitely noticed because he started keeping his visits shorter. I told Jake to knock it off because his attitude was affecting both boys. Adam could see the tension and Dean started looking uncomfortable whenever Jake was around. Adam finally came home from the hospital about 3 weeks ago. Everything seemed fine for a few days. The boys were texting constantly and making plans for when Adam felt strong enough to hang out again. Dean even brought over his Nintendo Switch so they could play together while Adam was still recovering. Then last Tuesday I found Adam crying in his room. Not just upset crying, but full-on sobbing into his pillow. When I asked what was wrong, he showed me his phone. Dean had sent him a text saying they couldn't be friends anymore and then blocked his number on everything. Adam was devastated and kept asking what he did wrong. I was confused because they'd been fine the day before. Dean had texted Adam about some video they wanted to watch together. I decided to talk to Mike the next day at pickup, but when I went to get in my car that morning, I saw Dean's phone sitting in Jake's cup holder. I confronted Jake immediately. At first, he said Dean must have forgotten it when they visited, but Dean hadn't been over in days. After I kept pushing, Jake finally admitted he took Dean's phone from his backpack when they were at the hospital last week. He used it to send that text to Adam pretending to be Dean. I completely lost it. I started yelling at him right there in the driveway, asking what the hell was wrong with him. He said Mike was getting too close to me and acting inappropriate, and that he didn't want to tell Adam directly to stop being friends with Dean because then Adam would hate him. So he came up with this plan to make it look like Dean's choice. The whole thing was so manipulative and cruel. My son was heartbroken thinking his best friend abandoned him for no reason. Jake kept saying he'd already told me how uncomfortable Mike made him feel, and I kept brushing him off. I told him that was because his concerns were ridiculous. Mike had never done anything inappropriate or crossed any boundaries. Jake begged me not to tell Adam what really happened. He said we should handle it like adults and keep the kids out of it, but I couldn't let Adam think Dean had just ditched him. I took the phone, drove straight to Dean's house, and explained everything to both him and Mike. Dean was horrified and immediately called Adam to explain. They made up right away, and Dean apologized for his dad taking so long to realize his phone was missing. Mike was obviously upset, but handled it way better than I would have. Now Adam won't even look at Jake. He's completely shut down around him and asks me when we're moving out.